Ma'am, this kitchen is for real chefs, not charity cases. The words cut through the heat of the Grand Aurelian Hotel kitchen, sharp as a blade. Chef Martin Reeves did not lower his voice. He wanted the staff to hear. Emma Ndlovu, dark-skinned, her uniform pressed to perfection, paused mid-step. The air smelled of garlic, butter, and something sour. Entitlement. "Pack your trays and leave," he said, smirking. "We have standards." Several phones lifted. Camera 2 caught everything from the prep station at 1741. Emma's eyes met his, calm and unbroken. "No problem, chef," she said quietly. "You will see my work soon enough." Her catering van rolled out beneath the hotel's golden logo, silent and steady. Inside, Reeves laughed. Tomorrow he would see her name again, on the city's new $1 million contract. Instant karma does not knock. It signs the paperwork. In the hotel's official incident report, filed at 0912, Chef Martin Reeves wrote that a disruptive vendor had entered the service kitchen without authorization. He marked the box labeled non-compliance with policy. The name typed beneath the note was misspelled. Anna Ndulo. The footage attached to the report ended conveniently at 1741:36, exactly 6 seconds before Amma's quiet reply. Those 6 seconds were missing from both the security copy and the backup server. Reeves wrote that he requested deletion for storage management. The IT clerk signed off at 1802, initials blurred by a thumbprint. In the public version of events, Amma was a caterer who failed to meet hotel standards. An anonymous staff source told the local blog Metroplate that she showed up without a health certificate. Another quoted Reeves saying, "It was not about race, it was about safety." By noon, the story had found its rhythm. It was not cruelty. It was procedure. It was not humiliation. It was order. Inside the Grand Aurelian's marble lobby, the general manager, a woman named Elise Pruitt, rehearsed the line for any reporter who might call. The chef enforced standard vendor policy. Policy had become the shield. But the truth was buried under the paperwork. Amma had signed a temporary vendor agreement 3 weeks earlier, Contract 8B-772, authorized by the city's Cultural Event Division. The permit was still active. Reeves had known that. The printout sat on his desk, half covered by a catering brochure from his own side business. When the maintenance worker, Camilo, asked about the missing footage, Reeves had laughed. "Glitch," he said. Camera 2 does that sometimes. Yet, on the server log, someone had accessed Camera 2 at 1814, 40 minutes after the altercation. Username mreeves admin, entry reason, data cleanup. Amma's phone pinged that evening with a message from another vendor. A screenshot. It showed Metroplate's headline, "Local Caterer Denied Access After Policy Violation at Aurelian Hotel." Below, the comments section bloomed with quiet venom. "Play victim, get views. Maybe show up with paperwork next time." Tired of the race card, she read each one, slowly until her screen dimmed. The next morning, her inbox filled with silence. No replies to catering inquiries, no confirmation of the festival schedule. The hotel's version had spread faster than her side of the story ever could. At 10:37, the city procurement office received an anonymous complaint suggesting that Amma Ndlovu's business be reviewed for professional misconduct. The email came from a private account linked to the same IP address used for, Reeves's data cleanup. He had not only erased her footage, he had tried to erase her credibility. For 2 days, the false story held. Reeves told colleagues he had handled an incident with composure. He even posted a smiling photo with the hotel's executive team, captioned, "Proud of our standards." Amma stayed quiet. The van was parked, her team confused but loyal. They had seen the truth unfold, but she warned them, "Let it breathe. The facts will surface." Her calm unnerved them. On the third day, the first crack appeared. A dishwasher, young, nervous, came forward with a USB drive. It held a 30-second clip he had saved before the deletion order. It showed Reeves's voice, sharp and unfiltered. "This kitchen is not for charity cases." The sound of laughter followed, and Amma's steady response. "You will see my work soon enough." It was enough to prove tampering, but Amma did not release it yet. She forwarded it to a single address, Public Records, cityatul.gov. Subject line, Preservation Order, Vendor Incident. Within 24 hours, an investigator from the Office of Fair Contracting flagged the hotel for a compliance review under City Ordinance 1294B, subsection Equal Vendor Access. The story that had been framed as procedure was about to become evidence. Reeves did not know it yet, but the city's upcoming procurement ceremony, the one he had been preparing to cater, was no longer open for bids. It was already assigned. The name on the award list had been printed 2 days before his report, Amma's. The false narrative was complete, but it was starting to unravel. Every lie was now tied to a timestamp, every smear anchored to a policy code. The cover story was cracking under its own weight, and Amma, calm as ever, waited in the quiet, knowing the next chapter was not about revenge, it was about record-keeping. The investigation began quietly. At 07:52 on Monday, a clerk named Raymond Cho in the Office of Fair Contracting opened the email marked Preservation Order, Vendor Incident. It was a standard form, but the attached clip was not. 30 seconds of unbroken footage. Clear sound, direct language. The kind that lawyers replay in training seminars. By 0903, Cho had issued a notice of record retention to the Grand Aurelian Hotel under City Procurement Code, Section 18204, citing potential violation of equal vendor access. The notice required all footage from cameras 1 through 5, between 17:30 and 18 on the night in question. The hotel's IT department responded with polite confusion. Some files appear corrupted. Cho cross-referenced the system log and found something odd. Backup traffic at 1814 from the user M. Reeves admin. That single data trail triggered the city's chain of custody protocol. Within 3 hours, the footage retrieval order expanded to include all admin logins for the previous 7 days. By the afternoon, the local fair contracting office was no longer handling the review alone. The request was forwarded to the city's Department of Ethics and Transparency, case number E21194. Reeves told staff that everything was a misunderstanding, that someone had leaked partial clips. He even emailed a statement to Metroplate. "We stand by our commitment to diversity." But facts were harder to smooth than headlines. Camera 3, stationed above the prep counter, had stored a secondary feed in the hotel's cloud-linked security system. The retrieval technician found it at 02:17 on Tuesday morning. No corruption. No missing seconds. The footage showed everything. The slur implied, the laughter, the smirk, the phrase policy spoken like a weapon. It also captured Amma's calm, her tone measured, her words precise. "You will see my work soon enough." Cho's report listed 9 separate policy breaches by the hotel. Failure to disclose external vendor permit verification, Policy 3.2. Destruction of city-related digital evidence, Ethics Statute 1409. Retaliatory misrepresentation in public communication, Ordinance 1294B, Section 2. Each infraction carried administrative penalties and potential referral to the Department of Justice under Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act. The investigation widened. Over 3 days, 7 other minority-owned vendors reported similar incidents at the Grand Aurelian during the past 2 years. One described being told to use the side door. Another said her contract was lost in transition. The complaint log now spanned 18 months. 4 managers and 19 denied invoices. Cho assembled a spreadsheet. Complaint IDs 22 through 41. The numbers told their own story. An 84% disparity rate between white-owned and black-owned vendor approvals. Total unpaid settlements, $486,000. Each receipt layered like sediment. Timestamp upon timestamp, camera angle upon camera angle. The more they pulled, the clearer it became. This was not one bad night in a kitchen. It was a system built to humiliate quietly. Amma remained silent through it all. She continued her normal work schedule, preparing for the upcoming City Food Initiative Gala. A multi-million-dollar contract already under her company's name. Her assistant asked if she planned to speak publicly. Amma shook her head. Not until they finish writing the minutes, she said. I want their own words to convict them. At 11:12 on Thursday, a subpoena reached the Grand Aurelian. It listed 23 items, security backups, vendor permits, internal emails, and one line that made Reeves pale when he read it. All correspondence regarding outside catering between January 2023 and April 2024. He understood immediately. His side business, Reeves Culinary Solutions, had been submitting competing bids against city vendors under his wife's name. The conflict of interest clause in City Code 18-512 was explicit. No active contractor or employee may pursue parallel profit in a government-affiliated event space. The same code that protected Amma now threatened to end his career. By sunset, the hotel's legal team was on a conference call with the Department of Justice liaison. Reeves stared at the muted screen, his reflection flickering across the polished steel of the kitchen. He had said it so easily. Policy. Now the policy had a badge, a statute number, and an investigator with his name highlighted in yellow. The calm before the storm had ended, and for the first time, Reeves realized the quiet woman he dismissed might not just be a caterer. By Friday morning, the quiet hum of the Grand Aurelian Hotel kitchen had changed. The knives still clicked against cutting boards, but no one spoke above a whisper. The story was no longer rumor. It had a case number, a subpoena, and a new investigator on site. At 09:15, a black sedan pulled up to the service entrance. The door opened, and Amandlovu stepped out. Not in her catering uniform, but in a tailored charcoal suit. The security guard hesitated, then waved her through. She carried no clipboard this time, only a slim leather case marked with the gold seal of the city procurement office. The same office that had issued the hotel's vendor permits. Reeves watched from the hallway, frozen between curiosity and dread. Morning, Chef, Amma said, her tone even, professional. We met earlier this week. I'm here under the authority of the city's fair contracting review. For a moment he said nothing. You wait. What authority do you... he stammered. Amma opened the case. Inside, her credentials glimmered under the fluorescent light. Senior Procurement Officer, Department of Fair Contracting and Vendor Compliance. The same woman he had thrown out of his kitchen was now standing there as the city's lead investigator. I believe you know why I am here, she said. The hotel's general manager appeared in the doorway, color draining from her face. We were told the review was administrative. It still is, Amma interrupted gently, until evidence suggests otherwise. She placed a document on the counter, each page stamped and initialed. Chain of custody audit, Grand Aurelian Hotel. On page 2 was a line that silenced the room. Primary subject of review, Martin Reeves. Potential violations, evidence tampering, retaliation, conflict of interest. The kitchen staff stood still. Even the simmering pans seemed to quiet. Amma's assistant, a young man in a blue blazer, handed out copies of the audit notice. He moved precisely without tension. Each paper landed with the sound of inevitability. Reeves looked from one face to another, searching for rescue. "This is absurd," he said finally. "You tricked your way into my kitchen. That was entrapment." Emma tilted her head slightly. "I introduced myself as a vendor, which I am. Your choice of words was voluntary." He tried to smile, but his voice cracked. "So what happens now?" "Now," she said, "we verify your records, and we make sure the truth lasts longer than the excuse." Outside, a news van idled by the curb. Someone from the front desk had already tipped off the local channel. The story had turned again, this time toward exposure. At 11:42, Amma gave a brief statement, calm, factual. She confirmed that the city had launched a formal ethics investigation under Title VII of the Civil Rights. Acton City Ordinance 1294B, she spoke about fairness, transparency, and accountability, never revenge. A reporter asked if she felt vindicated. Amma smiled faintly. "This is not about feelings," she said. "It is about records. Justice is just paperwork written correctly." By afternoon, the clip had spread across social media, the caterer who was the investigator. The caption beneath read, "Instant karma in a kitchen." Behind closed doors, the hotel's attorneys began damage control. Emails leaked, showing that Reeves had used his position to divert contracts to his private business. Bank records traced the payments. The same policies he had weaponized now surrounded him like walls. At sunset, as Amma walked out of the hotel, one of the young servers who had filmed the original scene stepped forward. "Ma'am," he whispered. "I am sorry I did not say anything that day." Amma paused, meeting his eyes. "You did," she said quietly. "You kept the camera on." The light from the lobby doors washed over her as she stepped outside. The air felt different now, cooler, cleaner, as if the building itself had exhaled. Instant karma does not raise its voice. It files its report and leaves. The data came in waves. At first, it was a few invoices, unpaid, unsigned, ignored. Then came the internal memos, tucked between catering schedules and supply orders. Each one told the same quiet story. A door that opened for some and closed for others. The fair contracting team logged every instance into the evidence sheet. Case file 21194E. Over 12 months, the Grand Aurelian had rejected 32 proposals from minority-owned vendors. 29 of those were black-owned. Of the 11 white-owned proposals denied in the same period, 7 were later reconsidered and approved after administrative review. The disparity was 86%. Cho's report read like a spreadsheet of discrimination. Columns of denial codes, timestamps, and dollar figures that added up to nearly 1 million in lost opportunities. Camera feeds told the same story in images. Camera 1 caught a delivery truck turned away at the gate, while a competing vendor rolled through 10 minutes later. Camera 4 recorded a manager scribbling, "Do not rehire," on a form with no explanation. Bodycam footage from a security officer confirmed that staff had been instructed to check credentials twice for certain names. It was not chaos. It was coordination. By midweek, the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division requested full access to the case under 42 U.S.C. Pirvth 2000E2, Discriminatory Contracting Practices. The city's Ethics and Transparency Office provided everything, sealed under chain of custody protocol. Then the testimonies began. A pastry vendor named Layla described being told to enter through the back alley because clients prefer not to see loading. A florist, Marcus, recalled how his proposal was marked incomplete because one page of his tax certificate had a smudge. A janitorial service owner named Ruth had been asked if she was subcontracting for someone else. All of them had paperwork. All of them had been told, politely, to try again next year. Cho's assistant mapped the incidents on a wall-sized board. Red pins for rejections, blue for approvals. The pattern looked like a storm, red everywhere. Blue clustered neatly around one office, Reeves's department. At 10:23 on Wednesday, An email surfaced between Reeves and his silent partner, labeled Invoice Diversion Plan. It listed the hotel's approved vendors, with annotations beside a select few, use alt name for city jobs. The scheme had operated for nearly 3 years. Each diverted contract passed through Reeves's private company before being subcontracted under another name, erasing the original bidders. The profit margin was clean. The paper trail, until now, invisible. Amma reviewed every file without expression. When Cho asked how she wanted to proceed, she replied, "We let the records speak." The next morning, the Fair Contracting Office released a summary of findings to the City Council Oversight Committee. 41 confirmed violations of vendor access code, 8 separate instances of digital evidence tampering, 2 confirmed conflicts of interest involving Reeves and senior management. Total restitution value, $1.6 million in back pay and penalties. The story hit the news cycle again, this time with numbers instead of rumors. Atlanta Ledger ran the headline, "Hotel Bias Scandal Expands, City Contracts Under Investigation." Public opinion shifted overnight. The same comment threads that once mocked Amma's silence now called her a hero. One post read, "She did not argue. She audited." Another said, "That is what accountability looks like." The footage of Reeves's outburst resurfaced, paired with Amma's calm reply. It became a symbol, a lesson on how power can crumble under paperwork. Inside the hotel, morale collapsed. Staff whispered about resignations. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. The investors demanded answers. For every receipt Amma uncovered, another door of truth opened. The lies had been built to withstand noise, not evidence. That evening, she stood before a city review panel, presenting the final file. Her voice was steady. "This is not only about me," she said. "This is about every vendor who was told they did not belong in a space their taxes helped build. The law is clear. Equal access is not courtesy. It is contract." The room was silent as she placed the binder on the table. The city's logo gleamed on the cover. When the chairperson asked what she wanted from the investigation, Amma answered without pause. "Restoration," she said, "and reform." The first part was underway. The second would take longer. But this was how systems changed, not through anger, but through evidence lined up so tightly that denial had nowhere left to stand. And in the quiet, after the presentation, one could almost hear it, the sound of paper turning into justice. The hearing room was small, windowless, and heavy with silence. The city seal hung behind the dais, gold against a field of navy blue. Cameras from local and national stations lined the back wall. The placard read, "Ethics and Transparency Oversight Committee, Public Session." At the center table sat Chef Martin Reeves, flanked by 2 attorneys. His suit was pressed, his jaw tight. Beside him a folder of statements, half apology, half denial. Across the aisle, Amma Nadlovu waited, posture straight, face composed. She was not there to argue. She was there to witness. At precisely 10 a.m., the chairperson called the session to order. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "you are here under review for violations of City Procurement Code 18204, Vendor Access Ordinance 12-94B, and Ethics Statute 1409, as well as evidence tampering under Civil Rights Procedure, Title 7. Do you understand the charges?" Reeves nodded barely. His voice, when it came, was dry. "Yes, ma'am." A monitor flickered to life. The first image, Camera 2, timestamp 1741:32. Reeves's face filled the frame, frozen mid-sneer. The audio rolled. "This kitchen is for real chefs, not charity cases." The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air vents. Next came the spreadsheet, 32 vendor rejections, red-coded for minority ownership. Then the emails between Reeves and his silent partner. The line that sealed his fate read, City contracts can be diverted with discretion. Keep the paperwork clean. The chairperson looked up. Mr. Reeves, did you write this? He hesitated, eyes darting to his attorney, then back to the screen. It was taken out of context, he said. We were discussing operational logistics. Amma opened a file in front of her, the sound crisp in the quiet room. Context is in the timestamps, she said softly. Each line was followed by a payment record. Each record benefited your private company. Her tone never rose, but it cut through every excuse like precision steel. The city's legal counsel continued, reading through policy violations. Falsified reports, conflict of interest, breach of contract, destruction of digital evidence. Each was numbered, each tied to a date, a camera, a code. At 10:42, the chairperson announced the findings. Charge 1, evidence tampering, confirmed. Charge 2, racial discrimination in vendor selection, confirmed. Charge 3, financial conflict of interest, confirmed. Recommendation: termination of contract, permanent disqualification from city-affiliated procurement, referral to the Department of Justice for review. Reeves stared ahead, eyes unfocused. A reporter whispered, "That is career-ending." Another replied, "It is policy." Emma remained silent. She did not smile. She did not gloat. Her calm became the room's temperature. Then came the unexpected moment. The chairperson turned to her. "Ms. Ndlovu," she said, "in recognition of your integrity and your cooperation with this investigation, the committee extends its gratitude. The city formally reinstates your contract and will issue full restitution for business loss incurred." The words landed quietly, but they carried weight. Reeves shifted, finally breaking the silence. "You wanted this. You set me up." Amma met his eyes once, steady. "No," she said. "I asked for respect. You gave me evidence." The reporters scribbled, the cameras blinked red. Instant karma had arrived, not through revenge, but through record-keeping. Outside, the afternoon light spilled across the courthouse steps. Emma stepped through it, like someone who had already made peace with victory. Behind her, voices echoed, policy language, legal phrasing, the vocabulary of consequence. Reeves exited moments later, escorted by internal affairs officers. A microphone caught his muttered words. It was just policy. For the first time, the city understood how that word had been used, as cover, as weapon, as habit. Now, policy would become the instrument of reform. The news spread across every outlet by sunset. Chef found guilty in city contract scandal. Lead investigator was his victim. Every clip, every camera angle, every receipt had come together in one inevitable truth. Injustice leaves fingerprints, and Amma had traced them all. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered. 3 weeks after the hearing, the Grand Aurelian Hotel reopened under temporary oversight. A new banner hung in the lobby, Vendor Equity Partnership Site, City of Atlanta. The logo looked official, but the meaning ran deeper. It meant the rules had changed. Emma Ndlovu's catering company, Mose Kitchen Collective, was now the official service provider for the city's cultural initiative gala. The same event Reeves had hoped to control. She never mentioned his name again. She did not need to. His absence had become its own confession. The morning of the gala, she walked through the same kitchen doors she had once been ordered to leave. The tiles had been scrubbed, the counters gleamed. Camera 2 still faced the prep station, quietly watching. This time no one looked away. She greeted the staff, some new, some old. The young server who had filmed that day approached her, hands still unsteady. "Chef Amma," he said. "It feels different in here," she smiled. "That means we are doing it right." Outside, the city skyline glowed in the late afternoon light. Inside, tables dressed in white linen stretched across the ballroom. each centerpiece built by vendors who had once been denied access. Their names printed proudly on folded cards: Marcus Flowers, Layla's Bakery, Ruth and Sons Cleaning. Every service, every flavor, every sound belonged to people who had once been told they did not belong. At exactly 6 o'clock, the mayor stepped onto the stage. "Tonight," he said, "we celebrate the people who remind us that fairness is not an aspiration. It is an audit." The crowd applauded. The cameras flashed. Amma stood near the back, unseen but centered. She did not chase the spotlight. She created it. When a reporter asked if she felt justice was served, she paused. "Justice is not a feeling," she said softly. "It is the return of balance." Her answer spread across social media that night, quoted and replayed. But the deeper story was quieter. The young dishwasher, who applied for a culinary scholarship using Amma's letter of recommendation. The hotel policy rewritten to ensure vendor diversity audits every quarter. The city ordinance amended to require automatic footage backups under Chain of Custody Rule 22. Those were the small restorations, the kind that last. Reeves's name faded from the headlines. His restaurant closed 6 months later. The last time anyone mentioned him was in a training seminar titled Ethics in Procurement. A single slide carried his quote, "It was just policy." Amma continued her work, methodical as always. She trained young chefs, many from neighborhoods that had never seen a kitchen like the Aurelians. Her motto hung on the wall above the prep counter: "Respect is the ingredient that costs nothing and changes everything." The kitchen that once rejected her now echoed with her students' laughter. The same space that had humiliated her had become her classroom. And on the first anniversary of the gala, when the city awarded her company the Vendor Integrity Medal, she accepted it with her usual calm. "We did not fight to be the exception," she said. "We fought to make fairness the rule." The applause rose like a tide. She stepped back, hands folded, eyes steady. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, one by one, across a city that had learned something from its own reflection. Sometimes restoration is not a miracle. It is a correction written into the ledger of time, and for Aman and Lovu, that was enough. Months passed. Seasons changed. The headlines quieted, but the ripples did not. In kitchens across the city, managers rewrote their onboarding policies. The vendor equity compliance became a standard clause, not a footnote. Camera retention protocols were updated. Each frame now backed up twice, stored under new chain of custody regulations. The silent spaces where injustice once hid were filled with accountability. Eamon and Lovu never sought recognition, yet her story reshaped the city's definition of professionalism. She continued her work with the same precision, never louder, never softer, just steady. She began mentoring young chefs, especially those who had been told they were too small, too unconnected, too different. Her lesson was always the same. Dignity is not granted by title. It is practiced in every choice. When the next gala season began, her catering team included 3 graduates from the city's new equity internship program. Each of them had grown up watching her story unfold. One of them asked during a late-night prep, "How did you stay calm when they lied?" Amma looked up from her chopping board, smile faint but certain. "Calm is not surrender," she said. "It is control." The room fell quiet again, the kind of silence that feels like respect. Outside, the city skyline pulsed with light. Somewhere inside a government office, her case file rested in an archive, labeled Closed, Resolved, Policy Updated. But her impact was not paperwork. It was living proof that justice, when written carefully enough, becomes culture. The story spread far beyond Atlanta. Across social platforms, short clips of her words circulated under one caption: "Share if dignity should never need permission." And in that simple sentence, her story found its true purpose: not revenge, not fame, but restoration, because instant karma is not magic. It is the moment truth stops asking for permission to exist.